Hi everyone, I'm so happy that you're here to join me for the Way of the Animal podcast. Welcome to today's podcast. Alastair is back again, and you had an idea for this week's topic?
Yeah, I did. I thought it would be an idea to talk about play and how important play is. Like, in adult life, it's very easy to not play and take everything really seriously and not have fun and not, be silly or literally play games together,
Yep, I get that. It's going to be a good conversation.
Yeah. But, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about the importance of it.
And when do you think and why do you think we lose that want to play? Or the ability almost to play?
Oh, we never lose the ability.
Okay.
But you lose the want. And I think a lot of it has to do with, growing up and responsibilities and getting yourself stuck in that mindset of, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. Like serious, this. Don't waste time, keep rushing around, don't have time for distractions. I'll sit on my phone and scroll for 30 minutes, but I'll not.
Can't play.
Yeah, I can't stop to have fun. I think that's what does it.
I like that what I really heard there was don't waste time. It's like, when did we think that play and having fun is wasting time?
Yep. I mean, I find myself doing it always at work that I want to get so much done because I want to make improvements. And I find myself trying to rush through things so that I can get more done, which never works. And it takes longer if I rush anyway, because I do make mistakes and what have you. So taking the time and enjoying a steadier pace is better. But at times that's hard to have the mindset for.
And it's interesting, like, thinking about, we talk about it a lot, is we've noticed sometimes working like in different places, there's a different atmosphere, let's say.
Yeah.
And, we did a lot of contracting working with other farmers, and something that we really appreciated was the fun, the banter, as we called it, which was just, to and fro, taking the mickey, having a laugh, telling stories, and it was like, it made the work a game.
Yep.
And even though we were always set for big, long days, doing a lot of work,
it was more play.
It was more play. It was more fun, and we, there's that sense of almost camaraderie. As you did it, we all were pulling together and just having a good laugh while we were doing it. Yeah,
that's it. So you're still doing the work, and that's a big thing. I don't know if that's a cultural thing.
I don't know. I think it can also be like an adult thing. If you're being playful, you're not being serious enough, therefore you're not being careful enough. It's like a whole sort of...
The perception of it can be not taken well.
Yeah. You're not taking your job seriously.
An employer would like to see you being very serious all the time and, no laughing or smiling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I can understand that it would be hard in certain circumstances to be fully expressionate and playful.
Just have to feel that lightness in your heart, even if it's not being expressed, I suppose.
Yeah.
And even that can be hard.
Yeah.
Because you just get almost weighed down by that sense of responsibility, like you said, or your own struggles or other people's struggles you're trying to help. And it's just like, it's also almost, for me, there's that feeling of guilt. How can I be joyful and happy when I know others around me are struggling?
Yeah.
And it's even so much as like the old dogs, when they're struggling, and it's kind of overwhelming to the point where I find it hard to have fun because they're not having fun,
Yes, yeah. That's definitely it. And I think you sort of hit a lot on the working ends up being very serious, because you have to take work seriously, and you've got important things like for example, our immigration and stuff, there are important things, debt, all that sort of thing going on in people's lives, that the real laugh of it is that it's mostly out of your control, or you're doing steps that you can already do. So having a laugh and having a bit of fun helps.
It reminds me, sorry to interrupt, it reminds me of, it must be a meditation I've listened to a lot. And his line is, life's just a game, you come here for a short while to do something beautiful, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it just kind of puts that different perspective in your mind that the game is life.
Yep.
And it's that, like we spoke about before, that present moment. And if you're always serious and focusing on all the things that are heavy and heavy going and the sense of responsibility, then you're not really enjoying your life or embracing life and living in a way that makes you feel good all the time.
That's it. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for seriousness.
Oh, of course there is. Absolutely.
But I think overwhelmingly people do more serious and less fun.
Yeah.
And I was certainly, thinking back, my childhood definitely wasn't like other people's, but it was very much a serious childhood. There wasn't a lot of play. And I remember thinking that when I met your family, and your dad in particular, and I didn't know how to handle that level of play.
Yeah. Mischievousness.
Mischievous, being silly, I didn't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, whereas I dealt with it a lot in my childhood, and sometimes it was a little bit sort of awkward when we had I think we had an exchange student over, and he was being silly with a potato and saying it was Sputnik and stuff, and just like that. Ooh, this is a little bit. But actually, I think even then, it was. Do you know how people talk about dad jokes? You just kind of really I got to the stage where it's just like, that's just dad being dad, Yeah.
That's it.
It's just kind of accepted in his silliness. And I wish really I was more silly.
Yeah, because that level of free... Because, he's serious when he needs to be serious.
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely.
But the ability to switch it and have that level of play is fantastic. And I think everyone looks at that and thinks, I wish I could be like that.
And
but
it's
when
almost
faced with it, you feel awkward.
As well, you feel like... There's like a feeling within me even that I feel like I need to be happy to be silly and play. But actually...
Silly and play makes you happy?
Yes. So it's like I've got it messed up in my mind. That's really interesting. That's a new way to look at it.
Yeah.
And I love it when we're being silly and the dogs just think it's the best thing ever.
Yeah. But it's that thing. It almost at times takes effort to be silly.
I think it takes effort to let go of the resistance to being silly.
Yeah.
So you have a thought about being silly and oh no, I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm just going to let that resistance
Of course, that just makes me think we're probably all brought up with the, parents do a wonderful job with their children, but parents inevitably code in things to their children that aren't helpful. Mm-hmm. One of them, I'm going to guess, is stop being silly.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's embarrassing, quotation.
Yep.
It's like...
I heard it growing up is don't be silly, stop being silly.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And you think back on it, and I can understand there's a time and a place for it.
Yeah.
But I wonder how much that is what causes the resistance in...
But and
to
take it to the other point of view, the parents and things like that, with their kids being silly, is seeing them being silly, and it's like a mirror. It's letting them see that they don't get to have that, or don't feel they get to have that moment of joy or silliness. The kids, it's almost like
probably why it frustrates parents.
Yeah. It's just like, God, I wish I could be that free and just silly and carefree.
Yeah,
but instead, if you just stop it, then I don't need to look at that part of myself that I wish I could be, you know?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting, that.
It's a really interesting thought that just came to me. And it's always that thing, you know, it's just that thought of, it's carefree. That's the word that I think is part of that silliness. It's carefree. And it's really hard sometimes to feel free from your cares.
Yep.
Because they feel like such heavy burden responsibilities. Ones that you would never really, I can't think of the word, but like be upset about having really in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it feels overwhelmingly like a burden, and therefore, you know, you want to be free of the care, but that's the way it is. But you could be free of the care if you brought the silliness in.
It is. And it's interesting where we've gone with this, because I started out thinking about just play, but the silly seems to be quite important.
Yeah.
And then you think about it and think, because like we play a lot of board games and things like that, card games, computer games. We play a lot of games together. How many times are they silly?
Not many.
They're quite structured. I mean, they're still good games. They're still good fun. They're very much a distraction.
That's where, you know, I think as the kids, the imagination.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we lack the imagination to bring the silliness in, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What were you going to say?
No, it was just an observation. It wasn't anything further. But, I mean, I noticed it myself. Growing up, I've always liked video games. I had a group of friends that we used to play together with.
Then you'd have silliness. There was sometimes you'd play and whatever thing you were meant to be doing within the game was not what you were doing.
Yeah.
And there was great hilarity and silliness. So it came into it.
It definitely
because
did.
it gave you a platform to express that.
Yeah. But it's still, I would suggest...
You were still trying to win something.
Like 70% of the time it was serious. Yeah. And then sometimes, you know, just 30% or something like that, so it was stupid.
Yeah, gaming isn't...
It's like, more serious than... And I notice it the older I get, that I can't be bothered with the really serious games. It's like, that's too much.
Just too much. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. It's almost like you feel like you've got enough seriousness in your life, and like there's enough of that going on around you without having to bring it into your sort of playful imaginary world that you play in, you know? Yeah, I get that. Yeah. It's really interesting. I really would like to strive. It's like, you know, we talk about the New Year intentions and things. I'd really like to strive to bring more of my silliness out. And it's just like letting your inner child out.
Mm-hmm.
We lock it away because we're so quick to try and be grown up and adults because we feel like that's who we should be.
Yeah. And it can be that really hard thing, especially with other people, when you start getting other people involved, is, you know, I come home from work and you're being silly. I have to make a conscious effort to allow myself to be silly, because sometimes I come home from work and I'm saying, no,
it's too much.
It's too much.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But actually, if I just allow the silliness, it's a much better outcome, and then I have a much better evening because I've let go of all the seriousness.
It's definitely that, you know, I've been thinking about it today, interestingly. We're going to take a little segue here about flow and being in a state of flow. And I was sort of thinking about the analogy of a river. And so I felt like there was 3 states.
Yeah.
Where you interact with this river that is flow. There's flowing down the stream, in flow, being silly, having fun, enjoying life, embracing whatever comes with you, just kind of being part of where the flow takes you. And then there's resistance, which is where you're like standing in this fast-flowing water and trying to walk upstream. Because you don't want to go the other way.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel the other way. And then the third state was this sort of standstill state where you actually were on the shore watching life pass you by. Watching the flow pass you by.
Yeah.
Which is a state that isn't always thought of.
Yes. Yeah.
But I feel like that's a state. There's a state of where you're just on the banks wanting to step into the river, but it just feels like it's going too fast. Life's just passing you by. You're not really embracing any part of it, even resisting any part of it. You're just kind of on the banks.
Yeah. With that, there's one that comes to mind with me, and it's that sort of almost feeling like you're trying to divert the flow of the river.
Yes.
You're trying to force
Control the river.
Try and make the river go a specific way, and the river does not want to go that way, but you're still trying, and it would be much easier if you just let it go this way.
That's definitely like, so the resistance can have like a few different ways of looking at it, you know?
Yeah.
Within the river, if that makes sense. So you can try to control your flow, which doesn't really work very well because, like you've just said, or you could just be trying to go against the flow, which also doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
But I think really what I'm feeling and sensing into this allowing silliness is this great resistance to flow, as in the flow of the energies within you that allow the silliness to come through.
Yeah, there's definitely that part of it, but you see, I find you almost get different tracks. So you get yourself in your serious work track, and then the other track is your silly fun track. And while I'm in this track, I don't want to step over to that track because I've got myself into here, and it's the crossing backwards and forwards. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I like that, but I think that's the difficulty that people have, I think, is this idea of separation of when I'm here, I'm like this, and when I'm here, I'm like that.
That's it. But it's that sort of tunnel vision you end up getting, that this is the state I'm in.
I need to be in this state when I'm here, but realizing that you can be in any state, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Yeah. You can feel joy when you're doing some of the hardest tasks, and that and it helps it be easier.
Yes.
And I think that's it's like, instead of looking at them separate tracks, we need to realize that they are all the same track. It's about releasing the resistance so we turn on the different state of feeling. I think that's where we get, like, it's just like at the moment it just seems to be, what I'm feeling is that, even in our own bodies, we are just always resisting how we are, and then if you want to feel joy, and I can't feel joy because I'm melancholy and there's all this going on, and it's just like, no, that's just going to keep you in the same way. You're not really moving forwards with things, then you're resisting it. Yeah.
It's definitely about being more, or it sounds like it's about being more intentional and making conscious decisions about your states.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm choosing to be silly.
Well, it's not even that. It's you can sometimes feel different states rising up in you, and they seem scary because you don't always feel that, and so you're like, "Oh, I'm not sure about feeling silly." Let's just tap that back down. Just kind of, this is an appropriate time to be silly. Well, is it? Is any time? I feel like we've lost that freedom that we felt when we were kids to just be who we were.
Yeah.
And it's almost part of it is that what we feel we're expected to be and how we're expected to behave changes how we think we should behave. Mm-hmm. Like you said with the programming. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that we fall into a programming of don't be silly, don't be, don't waste time, don't have fun.
Yeah. But, why wouldn't we? And it's like, it's really, for someone who, like, I'm speaking from experience, I am never silly enough. I wish I was way more silly, and that's something that I really am going to strive towards. But it's realizing, how much that holds me back just from being me. Because I am really silly.
Yeah, you would like to be sillier. Yeah. You would naturally be sillier. Yeah. But then you worry. See, this is the other side of it, is the other people's perception.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. I'm trying not to swear because it really doesn't matter. But for some reason, it's got in my head. It still holds you back. Yeah, it's like this belief in it.
That picture yourself in a busy street or something like that, and being stupid, and everyone staring at you.
and everyone may stare at you and everyone will see you, but I tell you what, there'll be so many people going, I wish I could be that free.
Yeah.
And the people that get really upset about it are the people who are most wishing they could be really free, but
definitely.
don't even realise that that's their wish as well, you know?
That's it, yeah. If someone being silly and having fun and laughing annoys you, it's probably because you would quite like to be silly and have fun.
Well,
and
it's
laugh.
like we were saying with the kids.
Yeah.
You know, when kids are just being completely crazy, it's like we want them to calm down. And I thought, why do we want them to calm down? It's because it's like overwhelming for us because it's emotions and feelings that we don't allow ourselves to feel.
Yeah, I think definitely with kids there can get to that overstimulated.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, there's way, like, I have no experience with kids really at all, so I have no say about
Dogs
that
are the same.
The only experience I have is I have been a kid.
Yeah.
And experienced it from the kid's point of view, and yeah. Animals, they can be the same, you know. I've seen it so many times when they are sort of, the craziness is not actually freeing or freedom. It is they've been triggered and they're overstimulated and they're just,
they don't know what to do.
do.
So they're just going nuts. So
and that stage, quite often you let them run it a bit and then you're like, okay, now settle, you know.
Yeah.
But it's back to that same thing though. We as adults have the responsibility to be careful of the language we use when we're speaking to children
and to each other.
So when they're being silly, it's like, look at you being silly, that's great fun, let me join in.
Yeah,
you know.
And the same, because there are times when it's not appropriate.
Yeah,
but it's the, like, not right now but later, you know. It's that It can't just always be, don't be silly.
Yeah.
Be more silly. I was going to say, you know, have more fun and play more games, but yeah, it turns out it's be more silly. Yeah,
it's like have more fun, play more games, and they're good because they bring in different sides of us and make us step into our imagination perhaps a little more and take us out of the real world, which can take us away from the seriousness that's perhaps around us.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, just be silly like my dad. Because why not? Why not?
You definitely didn't think that ever growing up.
No. But now I really appreciate the lesson that he's shown me by being him.
Yeah.
You know? And I almost feel like other people were more embarrassed than I was, because for me it was just my dad being my dad, and for other people it was whoa, you know.
But you see, people meet him for the first time, find it hard. Yeah, it's like, I don't know how to behave around you because you're being silly. Yeah, you know. Yeah, and it's odd, and I'm sure partly he really enjoys that, messing with people, but it's odd, that fact that as grown-ups, you don't know how to handle someone being a bit silly.
And the great thing is, like, he brings out the silliness in others.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's infectious. We all catch it and we all start being silly, and you can't beat that. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
It's the best thing when you're really grumpy, isn't it?
Oh, God. No, it's not. That's something you do, definitely. You try to be silly when I'm grumpy to quotation cheer me up.
I mean, I learned from your dad.
And I do, and that's really, like, the resistance is unreal. Yeah. But it's very much like my dad would do when I was a kid.
Just so we're, you know, black and white on this. When you're being grumpy and I'm being silly, you're saying, no, I want to be grumpy now.
Yes, exactly.
Take away all your fun and laughter.
I'm going to stay in this grumpy state.
This is much better than being fun.
I love being this grumpy state. It feels good to feel grumpy. Stop trying to take this away from me by making me smile.
I'm truly sorry for trying to take away your grumpiness.
I totally get why though, and it's like everyone does it.
But it's even more ridiculous to think that, no, I'd much rather be grumpy.
Well, we come back to resistance, don't we? That, like, resisting feeling better is something that we'll do.
To be fair, there are sometimes you just want to feel grumpy.
There is, but apparently I'm not allowed to. No being grumpy.
But I get that, like, you just want to be grumpy.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is.
It's a self-pity, isn't it?
Is it self-pity?
Yeah, it's like you just want to, like, be in that state for a while. You just want to be like,
I'm miserable.
And really, you know.
Why?
There's no need to be, but sometimes you just feel like you want to be, don't you? You just want to stay in the state that you're feeling.
Yeah.
Because it's easier than feeling anything else and moving forward.
I'm not sure it is, but
no, it's not.
Your brain
but
tells you that.
That's the story that is, you know.
Yeah.
And also you forget, or you don't want to remember, that you can change your state and how you feel very quickly and easily.
Yeah.
And I just feel we're back to the resistance. You know, we resist changing how we feel sometimes because it's easier to feel the way we feel.
That's true.
Rather than realizing that it's actually easier to feel better, but we're just kind of stuck in that other state. I don't know. A lot to think about.
There is a lot to think about, and even, you know, I suggested this topic and it's brought up a lot for me to think about as well. Just a lot of the resistance and the questioning why you don't be silly.
Yeah.
I don't think that makes sense, but you know what I mean?
Why you aren't embracing silliness.
There you go.
Yeah. Interesting topic.
It is interesting.
I'm actually kind of curious to see what Relish says he listens to. It'd be really interesting to see his point of view on this.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. Well, will we leave it there?
Yeah, that sounds like a good place to stop.
Yeah.
Let's go and be silly.
Yeah, definitely. And a cup of tea?
Oh, yeah, a cup of tea. Let's have a serious cup of tea first.
Let's have a seriously fun cup of tea. There you are. Well, thanks for joining me.
It's quite all right.